This is A View from the Bunker. Now, here's Derek Gilbert.
We are not alone on planet Earth. We've been visited by inhuman entities for thousands of years, but that doesn't mean they're extraterrestrial. Welcome to A View from the Bunker. I'm Derek Gilbert. If you're watching this program or listening, there's a good chance you already understand what I'm talking about. But for some, that's the final piece of the puzzle that just eludes them. They can't explain the mysterious lights in the sky, the megalithic structures that make no sense, the anomalous artifacts. And so because they don't understand, it must be aliens. Not so. Our guest today, and as with last week, we're recording this a few weeks in advance to give us a little time to travel, as we will be just returning from Israel as you're watching this. We're going back into the archives for a program recorded a little over 5 years ago, just about the time that the book Josh Peck and I co-authored on the UFO phenomenon, The Day the Earth Stands Still, was published. Still available in our bookstore, by the way, at gilberthouse.org/store. Also, wherever books are sold, the Kindle version available at Amazon as well. This is a gentleman who's been researching the phenomenon for literally decades and concluded, and I quote, "The UFO phenomenon does not constitute conclusive evidence of actual physical ET visitations by physical extraterrestrial biological entities piloting or maneuvering physical extraterrestrial spacecraft of any kind." End quote. That's pretty clear as to where he stands on this issue. In fact, he was featured in a documentary back at the end of 2017, early 2018, called Alien Intrusion. It was narrated by John Schneider, directed by our friend Gary Bates. Also featured our friends Guy Malone, Joe Jordan played a role in this as well, and basically made the point that yes, Earth has been visited by inhuman entities. No, they are not extraterrestrial. And so, going back into the archives to December of 2017, Norio Hayakawa on A View from the Bunker.
Hello, Derek. What a tremendous privilege it is for me to be on your program.
You do me honor, sir. I appreciate that. You have a very interesting life history, and before we get to your conclusions about your conclusions about the UFO phenomenon and about the alien abduction phenomenon, and I'll put the word alien in air quotes. Let's find out a little bit about you, how a man born in Yokohama, Japan, winds up teaching Spanish, high school Spanish in Phoenix, Arizona.
That's a very interesting question, but everything in our life doesn't happen by coincidence, and that's my belief that there's definitely a plan in our individual life, no question about it. And to make a long story short, one of the reasons I came from Japan to the great state of New Mexico, USA, in 1965 was because I got a partial scholarship at a college here in New Mexico. And it happened that in 1964, this state was the location of a strange encounter known as the Lonnie Zamora Socorro incident in April 1964. And as I said, it wasn't a coincidence that in 1965, the very next year, I received a partial scholarship in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And so I landed in this land of enchantment in 1965. And ever since, I was fascinated by this state. I was fascinated by this UFO phenomenon. And at that time, in 1965, I was still one of those who really believed that the UFO phenomenon was a nuts and bolts extraterrestrial physical spacecraft from outer space visiting us. And that was my concept because back in 1961, that's when I really started investigating flying saucers or UFOs. So that was in 1961 in Japan. excuse me, and I had joined many organizations of flying saucer research in Japan, such as the Cosmic Brotherhood Association in Yokohama, Japan. It was a large organization, strongly believed in physical alien spacecraft visiting our Earth. So that was the very early 1960s. But for some strange reason or other, after I came to the United States, I later on became influenced by the writings of Dr. Jacques Vallée and John A. Keel and J. Allen Hynek, three of the most respected UFO researchers that I ever heard of. And that was towards the end of the 1970s. So in the late 1970s, I was tremendously affected by these new outlook on the UFO phenomenon propagated by these three gentlemen. And I was tremendously influenced, and I actually started abandoning the nuts and bolts physical extraterrestrial visitations by physical extraterrestrial alien entities. And I began to espouse that this phenomenon is definitely an extra-dimensional phenomenon that materializes itself and presents to the observer one-sided, lopsided view of ufology. And so even today, despite my tremendous interest in flying saucers and UFOs, this is my position. This is my position that we are being deceived by sentient, almost paraphysical entities that roam this universe, and the entities that have presented a lopsided, one-sided view of what the reality is. And I am so excited that Mr. Gary Bates picked on this idea and created this amazing new 2-hour documentary, Alien Intrusion, which is unprecedented as far as I'm concerned. And it's unprecedented that it's going to be shown nationwide in movie theaters, locally, all at 7 p.m. on January 11th, 2018, which is, I believe it's a Thursday.
Yes, it is.
The reason why it's Thursday is because most movie theaters start the new movies on Friday. And so what a tremendous chance to wrap up the old week and wrap up this Thursday showing of this unprecedented alien intrusion all across the country. And I have no words to describe my excitement.
Well, we were very impressed with it. Josh Peck and I, again, had the opportunity to preview it before Gary came to visit us here in the Ozarks, and it's extremely well done. The film begins by deconstructing the science that would be required for entities to travel the vast distances across space. And they make it very clear that there are certain laws of physics that would need to be, well, just done away with. We would need to just throw out the basic rules of physics that we think control reality in order for them to even get here in the first place, which in the words of Arthur Conan Doyle, writing, for Sherlock Holmes, once you start eliminating the improbable, whatever, or the impossible, whatever's left, regardless of how improbable, must be the truth. So by eliminating the impossible, which is the ability to cross space without violating the laws of physics, there are certain options that are left to us to explain these phenomena. So let's dig into that just a little bit more. First of all, what is it? what was it that convinced you that the scientific explanation for the extraterrestrial hypothesis, or that the science, that the let me rephrase the question. What was it that convinced you that the extraterrestrial hypothesis was impossible, was not the answer to what people see?
Well, actually, you don't have to be a scientist to really come to that conclusion, because the overwhelming vast majority of the world's scientists and astronomers, even though they may hold the concept that there has to be life somewhere else in the universe, even though they hold a view, when it comes to UFOs, the overwhelming vast majority of the world's scientists and astronomers are skeptical that UFOs represent conclusive evidence of physical extraterrestrial visitations by physical extraterrestrial entities in their spacecraft of any kind. And, as I said, you don't have to be a scientist to know this. This is the reason why many of the researchers who used to be tremendous supporters of extraterrestrial hypothesis of the origins of UFOs and the UFO phenomenon have actually gone to the other direction. And I can name, as I mentioned, Dr. Jacques Vallée, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who used to work with the Air Force, even authors like the John A. Keel, who used to write some amazing stuff. They all join this movement. And so I'm so happy that folks like Guy Malone and Joseph G. Jordan and, Nick Redfern, and I was pretty surprised and pleasantly surprised that Nick Redfern did play a very important role in this concept. And so anyway, many of these researchers have gone from the ETH to the fallen and the malevolent.
Yes.
And this is my conclusion, that this phenomenon is definitely showing the signs of malevolence. And, what I'm trying to say is that these are physical materializations of sentient paraphysical entities that roam this universe. And they have always roamed this vast universe ever since there was a cosmic revolt eons ago in this universe, led by Lucifer. And so these sentient entities, the only thing they can do is to confuse us and to pose as highly advanced extraterrestrial emissaries from advanced extraterrestrial civilization. In other words, posing as ETs. And so that's the only conclusion that I can come up with. And of course, this does not mean that there are benevolent forces in this great universe, because God created benevolent ones as well. In fact, I believe that the benevolent ones outnumber the malevolent ones with a ratio of 2 to 1. In other words, to every malevolent deceptive entity, there are 2 benevolent ones, and oftentimes these benevolent entities, angelic entities, which have been doing great works, it's very difficult to see them because most of the time they are not seen physically, but occasionally they visit some people, yes, because the Bible says that, you never know if we're entertaining these angelic beings. So, but for the most part, the malevolent ones are the ones that are deceiving people throughout history, and what I call these entities trickster intelligence that has always been with us since time immemorial, since the fall of the the angelic entities that joined the cosmic revolt with Lucifer. And so that's my position. But over the years, Derek, I have found out that there are some limitations even to these entities, and that is that I have found out that these materializations of these entities accompany them with some difficulty because they seem to be unable to survive in a physical dimension except for a very few moments at a time, or only for a short period of time. And this is fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. And, Dr. Jacques Vallée also said that these things have the ability to affect our physical parameters, such as radar. And so I'm so excited that people are going to see this well-made 2-hour documentary film that includes a lot of footages that are fascinating, footages that are very, very convincing, but to the well-seated, those who are real grounded with the Word of God are able to distinguish between what is truly real and what is fake or what is deception. And so that's what I'm so excited about this thing, Derek.
Yeah, it's good that this is coming out. Again, it's well produced. It is by opening the film with the first section dealing just with the science. It's not immediately apparent that this is produced by a Christian ministry. So those who are curious, those who are really wanting to know, those who are genuinely seeking answers may well find themselves more interested in the subject than they would if Mr. Bates had chosen to jump right in with the Christian or the biblical response to these things. Now, the thing that I'm curious about, you mentioned Jacques Vallée, who is obviously one of the most respected researchers in the field because he's an honest researcher. He's the one who asked the question, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, the Dulce base, because I know you've done research on that as well, who asked the question of the true believers in the existence of this underground base, who takes out the trash? What was it about the work of Vallée, of John Keel, who listeners may know was the author of the book that was transformed, changed somewhat from his original book, but the book that inspired the movie, The Mothman Prophecies, and Dr. J. Allen Hynek. What was it about their work in the late 70s that began to convince you that this was a deception being worked on humanity, that these entities were not what they said they were?
Well, I guess I was very impressed with the work of Dr. Jacques Vallée in as far as the historical reports of people seeing some strange things in the sky from time immemorial. For example, in the medieval era, people seeing flying shields and all kinds of stuff that indicative of the culture and the condition of the population and civilization of that time.
Okay, seeing things that they could relate to, that they could understand, given their level of technology.
Exactly, and this is the reason why in the late 1700s and early 1800s, people in the United States have begun to see some crude-looking airship-like UFOs that seem to indicate the beginning of a change in technologies. And so later on, of course, airships were, produced and so on. So as I said, things like this is indicative that these things adjust to the cultural understanding of the era. In the modern space age, many of these objects began to take more aerodynamic forms. And also what's interesting, Derek, is that in the 1980s, many people in the East Coast have begun to see some humongous black triangular craft all over the eastern part of the United States. And
right.
That was also coincidentally the time where the United States Air Force was producing and experimenting with prototypes of stealth programs. But the actual items that people were seeing were different. They were humongously, a humongous aircraft, 5 or 6 times a football field size, and absolutely silently floating, and which was definitely not the work of the United States Air Force. The United States Air Force had never had anything like that the people had seen, namely humongous, tremendous black triangular object making absolutely no sound and able to hover, as well as able to suddenly disappear as if materializing. So this is not the work of the United States Air Force. This is the work of those entities that at least try to present the image of what they want to see in, what the people wanted to see. And so, yes, this is quite interesting, and I came to the same conclusion. And by the way, Dr. Jacques Vallée and John A. Keel, now these are not renowned men of, Christian, dogmatic faith,
right?
Because I have never heard of Dr. Jacques Vallée openly, espousing the basic Christian beliefs when it comes to ufology. Same thing as that John A. Keel, but their writing definitely seemed to point that this is the only alternative explanation to this strange phenomenon known as UFOs. And so I highly respect these researchers, because these researchers were not trying to bring any religious concept to ufology, because they were not known as evangelists or not known as Christian writers. But yet their conclusion seemed to point out to the similar direction. And this is why I believe it's so believable that these gentlemen have begun to present these alternative theories of the UFO phenomenon.
And that's one reason I respect the work of Nick Redfern as well, who is likewise just says calls himself an agnostic. So he's not trying to promote a particular religious doctrine here in his analysis of the evidence. He's just looking at the evidence. In fact, his most recent book on the Roswell incident comes to the conclusion that it was most likely a government cover-up of a project that the government didn't want, Russia to know for sure, but didn't want the American public to know about either. So it is interesting that you got researchers who, when they follow the evidence and do so honestly, come to the conclusion that it isn't a physical phenomenon. And I like the way you put it about a month ago at your website, and I'll put a link to your website in the show notes for this broadcast, the Civilian Intelligence News Service, and I quote, "UFO phenomenon does not constitute conclusive evidence of actual physical ET visitations by physical extraterrestrial biological entities piloting or maneuvering physical extraterrestrial spacecraft of any kind," end quote. Words matter. That's very precise, very specific, and very well put. Back in 1970, you worked with Nippon Television on a research, or rather on a project regarding the Dulce base, the so-called the alleged underground base in New Mexico. What was the inspiration for that project, and what did you find from your research, and what do you conclude about the existence or non-existence of that base today?
Well, this is a very important topic, Derek, and it's a topic that is very dear to me, because both Area 51 in Nevada and the alleged Dulce base in New Mexico both have been a favorite topic of mine for many, many years. And whilst Area 51 now is well known as a very important military research development and testing program in the United States. Everybody knows that. It's a very important facility, and it's real. But when it comes to the Dulce base, it is something that is not tangible because there's not even one bit of tangible, realistic evidence that there's a physical base in the Dulce, New Mexico area, which is part of the Hickory Apache Reservation. And, I've been interested in that topic since 1988, when I began to hear of the rumors about the Dulce underground base. But the bottom line is that there is definitely something strange going on, even today, at this Dulce location. Because it's located in a remote area of New Mexico, inhabited by Native Americans with a deep cultures, spiritual cultures and beliefs. And it seems to me to be a very idealistic location for any governmental agency to conduct any kind of a psychological operation tests regarding beliefs and so on, and so this is the reason why my interest in Dulce goes to the 1988 era, and but we have to bear in mind that northwestern New Mexico is very important in the sense that the United States government already in 1967 exploded a nuclear device near Dulce, New Mexico in 1967 under the name of Project Gas Buggy, which was a program to create the ease of the flow of natural gas and trapped in that area to benefit the local people, So that took place in 1967, but because this underground explosion took place near Dulce, underground, about a mile and a half underground in a national forest area right next to the reservation. Because this explosion took place underground, later on, somehow rumors started happening that the government was exploding this device to create some cavity or to destroy some entities that were already inhabiting allegedly in these areas. And so that's where the rumors started coming. And then, of course, the rumors started coming because of this very same experiment conducted by the Department of Energy or the Atomic Energy Commission in 1967. And that is that by exploding this atomic device, it was under the project, the Peace Atom for Peace program after World War II. There were several other locations in New Mexico that was part of this program, but it became apparent that in the 1970s, 10 years after the explosion, some form of radiation may have leaked out in that area, affecting cattle and other animals. And so how rumors started happening that the aliens were doing something in that area. And so that's the basis of the rumors. But in any case, I have known gentlemen that have long researched this area for many, many years, including the late Gabe Valdez, who was the state patrol officer in charge of Dulce for New Mexico for many, many years. And both this officer, Gabe Valdez, and also one of the ranchers over there, Edmund Gomez, both came to the conclusion that Dulce area had nothing to do with aliens, but it had everything to do with the secret government project to monitor the radiation that was leaked out after the governmental experiments. But the basic thing about Dulce is that it's a fertile ground for any kind of beliefs. And this is the reason why both Gabe Valdez and Edmund Gomez are of the opinion that the government tried to take advantage of the belief systems of some people over there, that there's an underground alien base, and even staged some kind of psychological operations by using some kind of a device like aerial vehicles, unmanned aerial vehicles, to stage some kind of a miniaturized situation of alien presence over there. But, let's face the fact, Derek, this whole area is a fertile ground for any kind of promotion of beliefs, and it's a fertile ground for the entities themselves that are playing games with local people, playing with the beliefs. And so I believe that this is one of the locations of high interest where people report seeing some strange things in that area. In fact, I have it on my website, the late 1960s incident in which a busload of Hickory Apache children witnessed a flying saucer crossing over Highway 64 in late 1960s. And all 16 or 17 kids in that bus saw this metallic, dirty colored metallic disc flying across the highway as the bus was trying to go to the local parochial school in the next town, Lumberton. And the priest who was driving this school bus, was so shaken up by what he saw that instead of stopping on the highway, he stepped on the gas, and because he was terrified. But this is a real incident proving that in that area there are definitely some unexplainable, strange phenomena going on, even today, as I tell you, because I hear reports from time to time about the strange presence in that area.
I've also read that one aspect of the Dulce story is the Paul Benowitz affair, who was an entrepreneur who was selling equipment to the United States Air Force at the air base near Albuquerque, and was contacted by an Air Force intelligence officer and a writer who had been responsible for writing the first big book on the Roswell incident.
Exactly.
And that would be William Moore, the Air Force officer Richard Doty. And he was led to believe that there was something there at Dulce, which was intended to throw him off the track of whatever he was researching, because they were dealing with a gentleman, Benowitz, who was a physicist by training, so a very intelligent man who might accidentally have uncovered something that the government and the military didn't want Russia to know. And so he was distracted and diverted into researching this non-existent base at Dulce. And in so doing, they made him fear for his life. He was convinced that he was the target of dark forces that were seeking to do him harm, and he eventually wound up institutionalized.
Exactly, and he's today buried in Santa Fe National Cemetery. He died in I think he died in 2003. I'm sorry, yeah. And but his sons still work for Kirtland Air Force Base, because Paul Benowitz was the owner and the starter of this company called Thunder Scientific Laboratory, which does business with the Kirtland Air Force Base, selling high-tech equipment, calibration equipment for the Air Force. So this family has a very interesting relationship with the Kirtland Air Force Base. And as you said, Paul Benowitz knew more than he was, thought to have knowledge. He was an expert in many of these technologies, and but somehow or other, there were some folks who, in the name of the U.S. Air Force, began to promote these kind of strange beliefs as far as Dulce is concerned. So Paul Benowitz definitely was a key person in the rumors about the Dulce base. And so we cannot underestimate the research of Paul Benowitz. In fact, in 1983, I believe that something may have crashed at on top of Mount Archuleta in 1983, and that may have been the first prototype of a U.S. Stealth aircraft that resembled almost like F-117.
Okay.
117, that's right. So because the government was so sensitive about anybody such as Paul Benowitz flying his private airplane over the Archuleta Mesa in the 1980s, they were so concerned that he was going to discover the remains of the crashed stealth aircraft, but so that gave more fire to, to the authorities to do something about this. And so they may have created this alien story to divert attention away from the scrutiny of this very interesting location.
I am friends. We've not met face to face, but we've known each other via the internet and through a writing group that we are both members of, who teaches at New Mexico State. I think he's a professor emeritus now, or maybe semi-retired, but a journalism professor by the name of Frank Thayer, who has co-authored a book on the Aztec incident. Are you familiar with that incident? This would have occurred around the time of Roswell, if I remember correctly. And what is your sense of that? And then what is, through the years of researching the UFO phenomena, what is your conclusion about Roswell itself?
Well, the conclusion is that yes, even beginning in 1945, after World War ended. In August of 1945, there was a crash of some strange object outside of Socorro, New Mexico, north of White Sands Missile Range, and that was called the San Antonio incident of a strange craft. That took place in 1945, and then 1947, there were other crashes near Dato, New Mexico, where the site of the a very large array of, astronomical facilities over there. So the plains of San Agustin, something crashed over there. In 1948, something allegedly crashed outside of Aztec, New Mexico. That was 1948.
48, okay.
That's right. And 1950, hundreds and hundreds of people in Farmington, New Mexico had witnessed for 3 days in a row during the daytime, hundreds of objects that were silverish, making formation over the city of Farmington in 1950. And so this indicates that this entire state of New Mexico, especially the northwestern Four Corners area, have always been a location of some fascinating events and incidents. And I cannot really tell what actually happened, but New Mexico being New Mexico for what it is, it's the leading edge location of United States leading edge military technological development, research, and testing location. It has the entire state of New Mexico has a population of only 2 million, but yet it's the 5th largest state in the union, with lots and lots of open space. And this is the reason why New Mexico has always been important ever since the development of atomic energy. In other words, starting with the atomic bomb. In 1945, they tested this atomic things, and it's a very important location from many, many angles. And to find out that by 1947, a lot of things were taking place in this desert state of New Mexico. As you mentioned, something allegedly crashed outside of Aztec, New Mexico, which is an hour drive away from Dulce and an hour drive away from Farmington. See, so what can you say except the fact that there are paraphysical activities in this state that no one can deny?
Yeah.
Even though we don't have any physical evidence of any landing of extraterrestrial physical craft, the events and incidents have been there. So what I'm trying to say is that, yes, I believe that there are in this world paraphysical phenomenon that materializes and deceives people by presenting themselves as alien entities in contact with the human population and to interact with the human population. And so this is my take on the Roswell incident. Nobody knows what really happened, but Roswell became the focal point of a long history of deception as far as the bringing to the minds of people a twisted notion of extraterrestrial phenomenon.
You say that you've concluded that it's your conclusion that these entities are malevolent. What is their end game, and why do they choose to use this deception as part of their grand plan against, for the harm of humanity? What are they trying to accomplish, and how does this fit into their plan?
Well, actually, what they are trying to do is to create a global religious system based on the belief in extraterrestrial entities as the coming gods, replacing the traditional, belief in the real God. And so this is the purpose, is to create a global government of some sort based on a global religion that everybody in the world can be attracted to. And this is happening. The belief in UFOs and the belief in aliens, physical aliens, are becoming rapidly a new religion. No question about it.
Oh, absolutely.
No question about it.
Yeah, we're on the same page on that score, and that's. I just wanted to kind of bring that out as the. I guess sort of the culmination of the conversation here. Obviously, we've only scratched the surface of this discussion, but I try to keep these to a manageable length for people to listen to in one sitting, and also. Because having been the guest on programs that run very, very long, we just recently, my wife and I were guests on a television program where we recorded for 4.5 hours straight. I try not to do that to guests when I'm the host. What would you say your hope is, coming back to the film Alien Intrusion, in which you, along with our friends Guy Malone, Joe Jordan, our new friend Joyce Ahrens, who we had the opportunity to meet down in Roswell recently, Nick Redfern, whom I've interviewed in the past, a number of others are featured. What do you hope that people take away from this film, Alien Intrusion?
Well, actually, this film does a great thing. Because it brings about the reality of the experiencers. The experiencers are those who claim to have direct experience with the alien entities, namely through this phenomenon called alien abduction. And to the experiencer, their experience is real, just as real as it can be. So this film does not try to underestimate the alien abduction phenomena, because the alien abduction phenomena is a reality to those who experience it. And so this film, as I said, is unprecedented in that it goes deep into this subject matter, unlike other UFO documentaries that we have seen over and over and over for many, many, many years. But for the first time, this alien intrusion film departs from the traditional same old storyline and brings a new reality that each citizen should be able to grasp, clearly. And so, as I said, I am so excited that on January 11th, every person will have a chance to see it in the local theaters. At least there are three theaters in each major city in the United States that will be showing this film, all at 7 o'clock, which is a tremendous thing. And I hope as the time comes along in late December, there will be some kind of a news exposure about this fascinating film and this fascinating way to present to the brainwashed folks all across the country to get real. And I'm telling you that this film is as real as it can be. And this is what it means when we say get real. And the only way to get real is to grasp this truth, grasp this final truth that we are being intruded by these entities as part of possibly the final plan for the unseen force to bring about a global deception. Hopefully, not right away, but you never know, because we are living in some unstable times.
Yes, we are.
We really need this to really bring a total revolution of the mind throughout the world.
Yeah, I agree. As you were talking, I looked to the website alienintrusion.com, and there's a search engine there where people can punch in their zip code or the city that they live in and find theaters in their area where the movie will be shown on that night. And here, even in our little town of 1,400 people in the middle of the Missouri Ozarks, there are 3 theaters within 50 miles of us that'll be showing it, one in Springfield, one in Joplin, one in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So there probably is one near you, listener, where you'll be able to watch this film on Thursday, January 11th of 2018. And again, between this program and the showing of the theater, we'll have a couple of broadcasts on Skywatch TV with Gary Bates about the film, and you'll have an opportunity to see the trailer and hear more from Gary Bates himself about the making of the film and what he hopes to accomplish with the movie. We are very much on the same page, Norio. The new book that Josh and I have been honored to have published by Tom Horn's Defender Publishing is coming to the same conclusion, covering much of the same territory, digging a little deeper into the history of the ancient aliens hypothesis, which is so popular these days, and finding, to our surprise, that it comes right out of the works of Helena Blavatsky and Aleister Crowley, with a little H.P. Lovecraft thrown in for spice, and suddenly that's the premise on which von Daniken and Sitchin build all of their house of cards. And sadly, many people, millions of people, have fallen for that very clever deception. So this film, and based on Gary Bates' book, Alien Intrusion, which is available as well for people who want to read the book, very timely and very much needed in these days. And again, appreciate your research and your willingness to share it. Again, an honor to talk with you, and I hope that we can do it again sometime.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Derek, for bringing this subject up, and hopefully you will make this an hour worth of YouTube, because you can do a lot of good by presenting this on a YouTube format.
Yes,
because we still have time, and let's do it, and let's bring the truth to the public.
Amen. Norio's blog is still up and active at noriohayakawa.wordpress.com. I'll put that link in the notes. You'll find that below this program, wherever you're watching or listening. And coming up, another episode of Bless Their Pointy Little Heads. The Congresswoman from St. Louis. Yeah, straight ahead on A View from the Bunker. Thousands of years ago, giants walked the earth. They are long gone, but their spirits remain. The evidence is there for those with eyes to see. Megalithic tombs, monuments aligned with the stars, and the words of the prophets and apostles recorded in Scripture. Now, see this evidence for yourself as Derek and Sharon Gilbert take you on a tour of the Holy Land with special guests Pastor Carl Gallups and Messianic Rabbi Zev Porat. From the mountain where the story began to the mountain where it all ends. Wars of the Gods, Volume 2, Search for the Rephaim. Available now in DVD and HD streaming video. Online at gilberthouse.org. Driving the internet to think from our world headquarters in the crossroads of the Ozarks, this is A View from the Bunker. I'm Derek Gilbert. You'll find us online, VFTB.net. Social media, we've got presence all over the place. Twitter at View from Bunker or at Derek Gilbert. You'll find us on Facebook, View from the Bunker. Got more characters in the title allowed at Facebook. Truth Social, Gab, MeWe, Getter, Parlo at Derek P. Gilbert, and of course you'll find us online at YouTube and watch and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/GilbertHouse. Click the bell for further notifications, but please, after you do that, then get our free app, because the app protects you in the case that the powers that be someday take offense to something I say, like last week's discussion of, that thing that happened at the Capitol a couple of years ago. That they tend not to like that. They pulled one of our shows and said that was a violation of community standards for some reason. Can't even talk about that. Well, if you've got our free app, all of our content is there. This program, our weekly Bible study, our weekly broadcast, Unraveling Revelation, PID Radio, Peering into Darkness, our very first podcast with archives going back to 2005. All of that on the app, free, and other stuff as well, like a Bible module. In fact, an audio Bible included with the app for free in multiple translations. So find the one you like, and if you've got to just listen to Scripture while you've got to keep eyes front, driving, what have you, that's there as well. gilberthouse.org/app to get that free app. And again, make sure that we never get separated, that we don't get canceled as far as you're concerned. Cori Bush was elected to the United States Congress a few years ago to represent the St. Louis area. It's sad. I lived in the St. Louis metro for quite a while. Moved there in the summer of 1989, moved out again in 2006, excuse me. And we still have friends and family members who live in the area. So I'm not besmirching St. Louis. As far as big towns go, I like St. Louis. There's been kind of a resurgence there. Some of the cultural things, the restaurant scene is actually very, very good, surprisingly good. It doesn't get the recognition it deserves nationally. It's also got a lot of really good craft beers if you're into that kind of thing. But Cori Bush has made a name for herself by following the riots that took place after the tragic death of Michael Brown in Ferguson, which, again, very sad. Used to go to church in Ferguson when I lived in that area. Community not the way it was portrayed by the mainstream media, by the corporate media in the years after the incident there with Michael Brown. Anyway, she has, Congresswoman Bush has made a career of calling for the defunding of police, while at the same time, rather hypocritically, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on armed security. I mean, she's wanting to have her cake and eat it too. Get rid of the police, but I'm going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to make sure that I'm safe, while the rest of y'all are going to have to fend for yourselves. Except we don't want you to have guns. That's kind of where she's at. Well, the Washington Free Beacon has identified Representative Bush's highest paid private security guard, a gentleman named Nathaniel Davis III, who claims to be 109 trillion years old and can supposedly summon tornadoes just by thinking about them. He can summon tornadoes at will. It's true. I mean, this is available through video that he has presumably posted to the internet himself. He's also anti-Semitic. Well, anyway, he's one of the ones that Representative Bush has entrusted with her personal security. Now, again, I don't begrudge her the right to be safe, especially in the St. Louis area. There are areas that are dangerous. Frankly, I get more concerned going to visit our daughter in St. Louis than I get traveling to Israel. I'm not exaggerating. That is a fact. So, Representative Bush, by all means, spend the money on your private security. But maybe while you're doing it, don't call for defunding the police, something that survey after survey shows your own constituents really don't support. And maybe don't hire guys 109 trillion years old who can summon tornadoes with his mind. Bless his pointy little head. As the Lord told the prophet Hosea, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. That's why we appreciate the opportunity to research, write, and teach. And we've got a couple of opportunities here right now. In fact, the Hear the Watchman virtual conference, Overcoming Deception, is available online. Just $49. Number of speakers, Jamie Walden, Dr. Mike Spalding. Mike Spalding, he is a scholar and a pastor. If you're in his church, the Calvary Chapel in Lima, Ohio, you've got a real deep thinker there. Tom Dunn, Carl Tankred, another deep thinker and researcher. He's contributing to the Hear the Watchman conference. Vicki Joy Anderson, who's become a good friend of ours, author of They Only Come Out at Night. She and her dad actually live in our area now. We go out to lunch with them on a fairly regular basis. Kenny C., our good friend from the UK, Mark Sutherland. Look forward to seeing him again soon. Craig Hill, Messianic Rabbi Jim Woodcock. Also Diana Ketterman and Tracy Tennant. Excuse me, ladies. My apologies for messing up your names there. Anyway, more information, list of speakers, and a place to register online at hearthewatchman.com, hearthewatchman.com. Sky the Watch TV's next spring virtual conference coming up in just a few weeks. It's called One World Rising, very appropriate for what we're seeing happening in the world around us. Globalists, the World Economic Forum, the Munich Security Conference, the Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commission, et cetera, all staffed by people who think, there's now this new group that calls themselves the Elders. 12 people, elders, who will meet and then spread their message around the world as to why we should listen to the World Economic Forum. Anyway, an appropriate topic, my presentation is on the Great Reset. So Tom Horn's got another presentation that Josh Peck is putting together, turning into a mini documentary, and many other speakers as well. The information is online at defenderconference.com. Still an early bird discount available as of this recording, and I think through the end of this week. But the information is at the website, so you can check my information there to make sure I'm speaking in turn and not out of turn, defenderconference.com. Our next tour of Israel coming up next year, and we will tell you when and who our special guest is on next week's program. But if you weren't able to join us this year, start planning ahead to next year, because I think you'll be very, very pleased and excited at the prospect of joining us on next year's tour. If you get a spare moment, by the way, and you're at one of these websites, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, wherever you find this podcast, which is wherever fine podcasts are sold, get a spare minute to leave us a review. We'd sure appreciate that. We tip the headphones to our friend D.C. Good, our announcer, and A View from the Bunker is a production of Gilbert House Ministries, released under Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is A View from the Bunker.